Barnes & Noble Union Square, please give a warm welcome to Jennifer Dugan, Emily McIntire, Tinx, Tia Williams, and Annabel Monaghan.
Wow, this is such an amazing turnout. Thank you to Barnes & Noble for putting this together. Thank you all so much for coming. I will admit that when I was given the list of who we were going to be talking to and what books we were going to be discussing, I thought, we've got YA, we have small town romance, we're going to the Hamptons, we've got the magical realism, like, what's the thread? And what is actually, now that I've read and loved all 4 of these books, the thread is that romance is not one thing. It's such a diverse genre to be reading in, and these books are like a perfect cross-section of what is beautiful about romance. So next time somebody asks me, and this will probably be tomorrow, why does romance matter? These are the 4 books that I'm gonna hold up to show them. So I'm so excited to jump in and talk about this. First, if we could just start out, everybody say who you are, say what your book is. If you think you write in a subgenre, say what it is. And then just give us like the fastest elevator pitch for what your story is.
No pressure.
And everybody's going to be graded on this at the end.
Oh my God. Okay.
You go first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tia Williams. I write adult contemporary romance. And I've written 7 Days in June and The Perfect Find, and my latest book is called A Love Song for RICKI WILDE. It's the purple one. Yes. Hi. And it is about a 20-something girl, RICKI WILDE, young woman, who grows up in a very aristocratic, rigid Southern family, and bazillionaires, and she doesn't want to go into the family business. She wants to open a flower shop, so she moves to Harlem, opens a flower shop. When she's there, she meets a very fine, mysterious musician, and they find out that their lives are intertwined already in all of these very mysterious, magical ways, and that a scandal that happened during the Harlem Renaissance is affecting their relationship in the present.
Wow. And when she says he's very fine, she's not kidding. So Tinx, go ahead.
Hi guys, I'm Tinx. This is my first novel, my first romance novel, and so I'm a little nervous. I have so much respect for this community, so I'm very excited. I guess you could call it a contemporary erotic novel, and it's very horny. I don't know the proper terms for everything yet, but it's very, very horny, so I'm excited. And it follows Lola and her whirlwind summer in the Hamptons, where she clashes but ultimately finds connection with Allie Ray Carter, who is a culture critic who actually brought her down. And it's all set against the backdrop of worlds of fame and fortune and fashion. So I'm very excited. I'm just really honored to be here and excited to get to know this community better.
Awesome.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily McIntire. And, hi. And let's see. The book I'm talking about today is actually the first book I ever wrote, called Beneath the Stars. It's being re-released recently. Most of you know me probably from the Never After series. Yep. But I'm going to talk about Sugar Lake, so pay attention. So Beneath the Stars and the entire Sugar Lake series is contemporary romance. I write in the contemporary romance genre, but I kind of have to write whatever the characters scream in my head, so I never box myself into one subgenre within that. Clearly, because Never After is dark and Sugar Lake is not dark. So Beneath the Stars follows Chase and Alina. They are childhood friends. He moves into town with his foster family. He's a very flawed character with a very traumatic past, and he meets Alina. They spend nights sneaking into her bedroom under her glow-in-the-dark stars and become really close. but flawed characters are going to do flawed things. And this is really a story about second chances, about learning to love yourself in order to love others, and that even people who make mistakes and have flaws deserve to be loved. And it is also kind of horny. So, yeah, that's it. Was that good enough?
That was
okay,
so good.
great.
So good.
A+.
Okay.
All right, Jen.
Hi, I am Jennifer Dugan. I write YA romance, adult romance, and then YA horror, and also YA graphic novels. So a little bit of everything. The common theme in my books is what most of my readership calls disaster buys. So it's usually about, there's always at least one bisexual POV, and they are always an absolute mess. So today I am here talking about Playing for Keeps, which is a YA and has no spice, unfortunately, for the rest of the panel.
See, we have balance here.
Yes.
This is what Barnes & Noble's doing.
And so that follows two girls where one is a pitcher for baseball who's getting a lot of pressure to switch to softball, and she's kind of dealing with like living her parents' dreams. And then the other girl has dreams of being a professional ref. That is her big, she's so inspired by the first woman NFL referee that she decides this is a kind of a non-traditional path that she would love to explore. And of course her parents, want her to go to Harvard and not do any of that. So they meet each other, and of course there's a rule that players and officials cannot date each other, and oh no, she's so cute.
I love it. Okay, thank you guys. So I'm going to go out of chair order because of the way my notes are written. So Tinx, I'm going to start with you. Because I would just ask you this if I met you on the street. So you're a podcaster, you're a New York Times bestselling author, you are an influencer. You really, it's staggering to me how much stuff that you have squeezed into the time you've been on this earth. And then you're like, I'm gonna write a romance novel. So how did that happen? Did you decide, I wanna write fiction, maybe I'll write romance? Did you wanna write about the Hamptons? What was the genesis of you writing this great book?
Thank you.
Which is great, I read it.
Thank you so much for the kind words. It was a bunch of things. I really like to free write when I wake up in the morning, and more often than not, I would write these characters, which I would sometimes put on my Instagram. I would take a picture of my outfit, and I would just write a little character and a story. And I always thought well, what if it was longer than a little page on Instagram? And what if I could really dig into these characters that I have in my head? And after my first book, which I loved so much, I was looking to do something different and really get back to creative writing. And I thought, why not try it in a big way? I really love to creatively write, and it's always been something that I've done privately to de-stress and just as an expression of creativity. And I kind of went for it.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And then now the Foster sisters are developing it for television. I mean, this is, and when is that happening?
It's sort of we just sold them the rights, and they're incredible. I'm having a little imposter syndrome when I'm in the meetings with the Foster sisters, and they're like, well, who do you imagine is Lola? And I'm like, is this actually real? This is so crazy, and I'm just so humbled by the whole experience. They're two really smart women. I couldn't think of anyone better to shepherd this project.
Amazing.
And I know they'll do right by it. They get it. They understand what I'm trying to say, and I just feel really lucky.
That's
so it's
awesome.
cool. I'm really excited.
I cannot wait.
Thank you.
I cannot wait. So Emily, I live in a world where I sometimes see a 1-star review because somebody there was a hint of infidelity in the story, and people are really mad about it. In your bio, it says, I write characters with seriously questionable morals. And that is so refreshing to me. What is it about characters that are not perfect, and just letting your reader go to a place where we are all so flawed? What appeals to you about that?
Well, exactly what you said. None of us are perfect. We're
Right.
all flawed. And I write, even when I'm writing villains, and I don't recommend doing what they do, There's something refreshing about being able to read about fictional characters and seeing pieces of them within yourself and relating on that level, and seeing them get to fall in love and get their happily ever after. And also, I love pushing the moral boundaries of my readers, and I like making them a little uncomfortable and seeing, well, am I okay with this? Or maybe it's a perspective that you'll never actually experience in your life, but through reading, you get to experience that and maybe gain a new perspective that you can take out into the real world. And so I think the questionable morals is a very big sliding scale that can apply to many different facets of characters, and I like to play in that sandbox.
Yeah, I love it so much, and I feel like it's where we're going to get empathy. Like, we all need to develop our empathy. And by reading about imperfect people, like, that's half the battle.
Right, exactly.
I love it. Tia, I read your book. I read this book when it came out, and obviously Ricky Wilde is a runaway success. And to me, it felt like if you took the ultimate, most epic love story possible and then put it on steroids. Because the whole thing, I mean, it's magic. And that was your first time writing magical realism, right?
Yes.
And so it's like Harlem's magic, the Night Jasmine's magic, the actual story is magic. Where did that come from?
I'm not a fantasy writer. No. I'm not, that isn't the sandbox with which I play, but I've always been really drawn to, I'm kind of a spooky lady. My mom is Louisiana French Creole, and there's some voodoo in that DNA, and a lot of superstition and hoodoo, and it's something that I've always been kind of interested in. But where the hell, like how do I get that in a book?
Yeah.
And so I came up with this idea of, and I don't think this is spoiling it to say that there is a little bit of a curse involved. There's some leap year magic involved. The book is set February of 2024, which was a leap month. And I'm just always interested in the idea of these times where the veil between this world and whatever else is out there is thin. Mm-hmm. And I've always been told that leap month is one of those times. And so I started asking myself, like, if the veil is thin, what can get in? What can get out? And I was like, oh, magic.
You feel it on every page.
Oh.
Like, I kind of felt like I was on something the whole time I was reading that book.
Were you?
Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot that goes on in the suburbs. So
I'm from Northern Virginia. I know.
Okay. You know. Jen, so you write YA and adult.
Yes.
The thing that I love so much about YA is like the constraints around the fact that they have to live with their parents, right? Like anything in a romance that has a lot of constraints, I always feel like it has a great tension. This is a romance between two girls who are both really struggling. They both had suffered huge loss, and they're both struggling with the totally unrealistic expectations of their parents. And I think that this book is something that's really going to resonate with what I think is a generation of kids who have had a lot of loss and are dealing with totally unreasonable expectations of their parents. Is that something that you wanted to focus on in this book? Like, what was the message you were trying to get out about?
Well, I read something once that said the biggest danger to children are their parents' unfulfilled dreams.
Totally.
And so I really wanted to kind of explore that in a way where we have, as you said, there is themes of grief. So we have a mother who have passed and we have a brother who have passed, and living up to the expectations that their family has placed on them as a result of that. And how kind of the grief and healing of the family impacts all of their parental expectations. But I think there is a real tendency of parents, you're handed this baby and I have 2 kids of my own, there's no instruction book, and you raise them and you think, oh, I'm gonna give them everything I never had. And it starts off so pure, hopefully, in a healthy family. It starts off very pure, where you're like, I always wished I could do this, and I'm going to fulfill this dream for them. But what happens is that a lot of parents start putting them in a smaller and smaller box, and they're like, this is what you're going to become. This is what I want from you. This is your life now. And so it was very hard. Like, for me personally, I knew that I was going to have two little, like, bookworms who just loved reading all of the time and, went into the arts. And I have two, like, super jocks who, my son reads, like, one book every year. He just rereads the biography of the guy who invented Nike. I don't get it. And they have had all of my other kidlit authors, they send them for birthdays. They're like, here's a signed book. And I'm like, look, this is amazing. And they're like, yeah, I got to go to practice. I'm like, okay. So as they've kind of dragged me along, I started thinking about, because some of the parents on the benches with me have this really intense, like, my child is going to be the best. And I was like, what is it like to live that? Because I get off, my kids come and I'm like, nice job. Like, I'm competitive about other things, but not generally, their performance. And so I just thought that was such a rich world to really explore. There's just so much when you're trying to figure out who you are, when everyone is telling you to be someone else.
Yeah, and it's such a gift. I mean, you're honestly giving a gift to this generation, like giving them back what they lost. I really felt that when I was reading. So Tinx, there's themes in your book, obviously, of like the dark side of celebrity and like having it all and having it taken away from you. And I loved in your acknowledgments that you thanked all your old boyfriends because you do grow in all the bad relationships. You grow in the good relationships. But really, the point of your book is it's dangerous to hide in relationships. So it's both. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, sometimes we really use relationships as cover, whether that's from the world or whether that's from ourselves and who we want to be. And that's really something I wanted to explore, is like losing yourself in a relationship and how like dangerous and scary that can be, and how important it is to have your own identity so that you can be a better partner in the long term.
Yeah.
And I think that, when you add the layer of being in the public eye, like Lola, she feels, it's just another layer that's added on top of her. And it's just another layer that causes her to lose herself further and further. So yes, I thanked all my old boyfriends because they taught me a lot. And I wouldn't be who I am had I not had my heart broken and had all those experiences. So that's another theme that I wanted to explore, is like, people come into our lives and for a reason, and they can add to our lives, they can take away from our lives, but if you learn from them, then that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It'd be fun to do an event where you had a bunch of romance writers and we brought all our old lovers. And they could say what they thought about our books. Like, that was me. I don't know.
Well, I hope that all the old boyfriends appreciate that I said thank you in the back of my book. They better pre-order it.
I just hope they buy a copy. That's all I care about.
Right.
No apologies, just buy a copy. So Tia, for your next book, we're going to YA.
Yes.
And it's a spin-off from 7 Days in June, which is what everybody's been waiting for forever. How do you approach that? Like, because your voice changes in an adult book do you wear a different hat? Do you write in a different place? Like, how do you gear up to write YA?
Well, my voice didn't change.
Okay.
I just lost a few years.
Yeah.
I just, went down a few decades.
So you write Audrey in your younger voice. Like, that's who you were
Yeah,
as a
that's who I
teenager.
was. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So I have YA rom-com coming out in May called Audrey and Bash Are Just Friends. And if anyone has read 7 Days in June, which is a previous novel of mine, the daughter of the female protagonist, Her name was Audrey, and she was 12, and she was very precocious and often the wisest person in the room, even in a room full of grown-ups. And she has a therapy side hustle. And she's just a hilarious character, and she ended up being a fan favorite. And so now it's 4 years later, and she's starring in her own rom-com. She's 16. And people have been wanting a sequel to 7 Days in June. It's not a sequel. I'm calling it like its little sister, the book, because it's in the same world. And so I was trying to figure out, how do I take this world, which was an adult world, but now make it younger? And the way I did it is I have a 16-year-old girl living in my home, my daughter, and she's a, tough crowd.
Yep.
And so I would run things by her. We would never say that. I don't know anyone who talks like that. No, you need to make them do this. Is there going to be a fight? He's got to fight for her, like physically.
There's got to be bloodshed.
There had to be, And she's like a romance girly for real, like capital R, like she knows all the tropes. Like every time I do an event, she's like, when do I get to meet Julie Soto? But can I talk to Allie Hazelwood? Tell Kennedy I said hi. Like she's very, like she's in the world. Yeah. So she knows of what she speaks.
Yeah.
Every time there was a summer party or anything, I would be like, okay, girls, what's the tea? What's going on at school? I need to know. You go. No, that's too explicit. Okay, your turn. All right, you tell me. And I would just like take notes. And so it was important to me to sound authentically 16, because I think the worst is to sound like an old person. Not that I'm an old person, but like, and a Gen X person trying to inhabit the voice of a
trying to
teenager.
Be down with the young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bad look.
It is such a bad look. Yeah. Emily, I wanted to ask you, I'm writing a book a year. I am so maxed out. You're writing interconnected stories that are like, they each stand on their own, but they're all interconnected. The thought of that breaks my brain. So how do you, J.K. Rowling would plan out the whole Harry Potter series. Do you do that? Or
I actually don't pre-plot my books at all.
You do not?
No, not at all. No. Yeah. Surprise!
So you use the Force?
So, I feel like I'm a conduit almost. And when I'm in the zone, my muse is trained to show up every day in the morning when I sit down at my desk in my office. And I don't know where it comes from. I feel like it just drops in my head. So the way I start, and it was easier with Never After because they're complete standalones. They're each in their own world. Sugar Lake is interconnected. And my next series, which I will not be telling you about yet, but I'll tell you it is interconnected. So the way it starts is the characters always speak to me first. And I actually do character profiles where I interview the characters. And they are in the back of all of the paperbacks of every single one of my books. But I do those first. And it's an interview where I really get the feel of them, and then I know that I can throw them in any situation, and I know exactly how they're going to react.
Right.
And so I build the characters first, and then I build the world around them. And it really is kind of terrifying every single time.
Yeah.
Because I sit down, and that's why I write in first person present also, because I feel like I become the character when I'm writing from their point of view, and I'm telling their story, and I'm just kind of the transcriber as they play it like a movie in my head. So somehow it always works out. I do have to keep notes as I write so that I don't make cousins kiss on accident or
questionable,
or put one building in one place and then in 2 books from now it's in a different place. So I do keep notes, and then of course in the editing process you go back and you strengthen and you can foreshadow and you tie things together. But yeah, it's just always been kind of what I felt I was meant to do, and I just feel like whatever source is giving me the stories, it kind of plays out and works out.
That's absolutely amazing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right? Totally. So I wanted to ask you guys all a question. I was doing an event once, and there was a guy at the back of the room. There's always a guy in the back of the room. And he raises his hand at the end, and he says, you seem smart. Why do you write romance? And I said a bunch of stuff. I used a lot of big words. I just answered the question in an annoying way. But I've been thinking about it ever since, ruminating on this. How do you guys feel about that? And what would you have said?
Shut up, you misogynist pig. I mean,
I never have that available to me right away.
A wild thing to say.
Yeah.
It's so,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I really feel like that's so just misogynistic, and it's in nature. And I mean, in the moment, I wouldn't have known what to say either, because I would have been flabbergasted that would have come out of someone's mouth. But yeah.
Do you ever get that? Do people
This
say,
exact same
yes.
thing happened to me. Yeah, it was deep during the pandemic when we were all doing, Zoom panels and things.
Terrible.
And so people really felt like they could really be, confrontational behind their screens.
Oh.
And a guy, no shade to the men in the room, we love you.
Maybe a
but this
little
was in
shade.
fact a guy, and he was like, I read your book. I never read romance. I don't like romance, but I read yours, and it is smart. And I just wanted to know how you make romance sound smart. And I was like, 'cause a smart bitch was writing it. What?
Obviously.
What do you want from me? How else would I have written it? How insulting.
Yeah.
I'm insulted. The genre is insulted, but I'm insulted. Why would it be surprising that I would write something smart? I took it personally. But
none of us would be here if it wasn't for love. It's a very important story that we tell over and over again. Maybe more important than splitting the atom.
Yeah.
Have you ever had this?
I think I get it on multiple fronts because I also hear it as YA is also deeply considered a waste of time, or a little kid thing, or it doesn't bring anything. And usually I shut it down because the kids, especially, I do a lot of school visits and library visits where I can just meet with teens in a smaller setting, and I see the impact that it has on them. But I always take a lot of solace in thinking about when there's that one Taylor Swift song where she was putting a little shade about your daughter listens to me and she's gonna get off the bus, and that's just what I think. I'm shaping, I don't want to say I'm shaping their minds, that's a little bit big, but I am being a presence in their life, and hopefully giving them some tools they might not necessarily have, which I think is one of the biggest things you can do for young adults who are trying to navigate the world. And to do it in a time where so many young adult books are being challenged and banned and all of that, and to continuously put myself out there and be like, I can be this space for you, is just the fact that it gets constantly criticized, typically by older men. I'm like, you don't have any clue what's going on underneath your view.
yeah.
I also meant to congratulate you on having so many banned books.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Goals. I mean, it's my goal to write something interesting enough that someone would ban it.
It's always funny when I walk into a bookstore and there's a banned book display, and it's Angie Thomas, and it's all these books that I feel have been groundbreaking, world-changing, and then there's Hot Dog Girl, which is... I'm like, if you've seen a Disney movie, you've gotten a significantly raunchier experience than in Hot Dog Girl. If for anyone who's not familiar, that's my book, my debut, which came out in 2019, and it's literally about a girl who tries to get a job as Cinderella at an amusement park and gets cast instead as a hot dog and has to walk around the park while trying to look cool in front of her crush. And
It's very problematic.
Yeah, and that is probably my most challenged title, actually.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you ever get this?
Oh yeah, I think every romance author probably gets it at one time, or even if they go, "Oh, you're an author. What do you write?" "Oh, romance." That look. And to that I say, what are you so insecure about? I mean, are you upset that I'm able to please a woman and make them fall in love more than you are? And this seems like a personal problem, and maybe you should read some romance books. Maybe you wouldn't have to be on those apps, sliding in DMs and getting turned down all the time. Just thought. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
God. So tuck that away for next time.
Yeah.
I love it.
Also, romance is the juggernaut of the industry. So the fact that it always is the one that's having to defend itself so staunchly against, and other genres don't ever have to defend themselves in. I mean, there are exceptions, but the way romance does is so wild to me, and it's so misplaced, and it's absolutely misogyny.
Yeah. Makes me
And
insane.
it's because it's woman dominated. I absolutely agree.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys have, like when I write, I don't write to tropes. I don't really think about tropes when I'm writing. Do you guys have any tropes you like to read? Like something that's catnip for you?
Y'all are going to be mad at me for this one.
Oh, I want to hear.
Yeah, if you want to guess, go for it.
I'm trying to think though, like the craziest one.
What
Well,
is
I
the
thought you had
craziest?
something on the top of your head.
I don't want to say something basic like enemies to lovers.
No, well, I do love enemies to lovers.
The best trope.
Cheating.
Oh,
Yeah, I love it.
Did not see that
I love
coming.
it.
I 1 star.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
but let me tell you
it's
why,
not okay.
though. Listen, if it's on each other, it has to be an immaculate grovel. And I think it's because I've been cheated on so much in my life that I love to see and feel like the regret and the turmoil and just what they go through. And if they're cheating with each other, the angst, please put some respect
Please.
on its name, y'all. What is wrong with you?
Cheating with each other.
Yeah.
Lost me, then had me again.
Yeah. See? I bring you back.
And did you just say the immaculate grovel?
It has to be an immaculate
And is that a
grovel.
phrase?
It-
Did you just make that up?
Maybe it is now.
That's a thing? I've never heard that
Yeah.
before.
I think it's
I want it on a T-shirt.
I like it so much.
Yeah.
I think it's coming, like it's upcoming.
Yeah.
I'm going to write it down.
Yeah.
Do you have one?
I love second chance romance with no cheating.
I also like
I
that.
just love I love when someone is awful, and I love the grovel, but I usually explore it in different ways. I have, my book that's coming out this May is mildly a second chance romance. They were friends and crushes when they were little, and then they had a falling out, and now they're trapped. It's called Summer Girls. It comes out in May, and they're stuck together. It's actually an influencer and child of an influencer, and they are trapped together in Newport, and they have taken away the influencer's phone. And I love it is kind of like a rival enemies to lovers kind of thing, because when they get back together, it's like oil and water. And exploring that kind of opposites attract, second chance, we have each other completely wrong, that is my favorite thing to write, is my favorite thing to read. I could read it
Okay.
all day.
This is mine. Trapped. Like forced proximity. Oops, one
Yes.
bed.
I
I
love
love that. What
Yeah.
will we do?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love
There's only one bed.
what happens now?
Could we just have a show of hands here?
How did you end up in this closet?
How many people in this room have ever been in a situation where they're trapped and there's only one bed? Any?
Congrats.
Okay.
Congrats. Congrats.
You're the only one. This never happens.
Queens among
Sometimes
us?
you have to force it, though, you know? Seize the opportunity. Ah, I didn't mean to book this way.
Right.
I'm so sorry.
Tinx, do you have one? Do you have a trope you like?
I really like friends to lovers.
Yeah.
I love that tension build. I don't know if that makes me basic, but I just think it's like
'cause
some
they
of the
really know
horniest
each other.
writing. Yeah. You're sensing a theme. I like horny things. So.
All right, well, I think we're going to take questions. I assume you guys have some questions for these.
We're going to start right here, but if anybody else has one.
Hello, and I just wanted to ask what you guys are either reading right now, or what's a book that you would recommend for us to read after this.
I have one. This was the book that made me want to be a romance writer, so it's extremely 80s paperback vibes. No, it's not. It's a contemporary with a little bit of time travel. So yes, it's Bodice Rippery. Jude Devereaux, Knight in Shining Armor. get it. Write it down. Goodreads. Yeah, it'll change your life.
I've never heard of
I have one for you too. So right now I'm reading, because I am writing, I read in kind of a different subgenre, so I'm very in my romantasy era right now. Amber V. Nicole. Really anything by her. What's the series called? I'm blanking on it. Yeah, Book of Azrael. Read it, pick it up. Incredible. And then my other one I'm going to recommend to you is Zoe Draven, the Horde Kings of Dakar series. It is sci-fi romance, and when I tell you, you will feel every single emotion. You will cry, you will laugh, you will love. So yeah, so those are mine. The Horde King series of Dakar by Zoe Draven, and The Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so good.
I just read a book, the newest Rachel Reed book. I'm blanking. I just did a hockey romance panel with her, and I'm getting confused because there were two. One was The Shot You Take, and one was Shoot Your Shot, and they were the two authors I was interviewing. So whichever one is Rachel Reed is like literally the best. Thank you. The Shot You Take by Rachel Reed, which is retired hockey player romance, second chance romance with immaculate groveling. So I would definitely recommend that. And also another book that I absolutely, one of my favorite adult romances of all times is Nora Goes Off Script.
Oh, thank you.
And
I
so
wrote
if you
that.
have not read that, it was really it got me really excited to be working and writing out adult romance, I would say.
Wow. This is the best day ever.
I was kind of like in the world of my book, so I decided to read reread one of my favorite nonfiction books. It's called When in Doubt, Wash Your Hair by Anya Hindmarch, and it's a fantastic book full of advice. She's very wise. It's a very comforting read, and it just honestly feels like a hug. So, reread that.
Okay.
Is she the Purses?
Yes, but
Okay.
she's honestly a gifted writer and
Okay,
so
wow.
smart, and highly recommend it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm on it. All right, who else?
Anybody else?
I was just seeing how many guys were actually in the panel today. I guess if you've ever done cons or panels, has fans ever inspired any characters, or have you ever taken any ideas and used them like in a book or a series?
I have an answer for this one. Some of you may have heard. It's not really a fan, but okay. But I like to refer to her as Sephora Jess. The lore is deep. Some of you may know, but I was battling cancer for the past 2 years, and I just recently came off of chemo. But in the middle, thank you. But in the middle of my chemotherapy treatment, when I had no eyelashes and I had no hair and I felt so horrible, I mass threw out all of my makeup. And then when I started to feel a little better, I was sad because I didn't have any makeup. But I couldn't go out anywhere because I was still very immunocompromised. So I did a big Sephora order, like $800 worth of. And her name is Jessica, was the delivery driver's name. She took hours to show up to my house and then showed up at 11 o'clock at night, took a picture of my front door, photoshopped the Sephora bags, and stole all of it. I know.
Okay, this
Yeah.
is morally questionable.
Yeah, but however, she does not get a redemption in my book. But long story short, they didn't want to do anything. Y'all made it go viral. And then all of a sudden, Uber Eats and Sephora were sending me like bouquets and giving me all this money. And, so we decided to write a Jessica into Hexed. And if you don't know, the Never After series is where villains get their happily ever after. So they do very morally questionable things. And Vanessa in Hexed is very morally questionable and did not like Jessica. So, yeah, I wrote her into the book. Well, if only she could see her lore now.
Hi.
So my question is, I know some of you have playlists in the front of your books. Do the songs come naturally as you're writing? Do you think about it after? And how does that kind of develop as your story develops?
What a good question. Who has playlists?
I have playlists.
You have playlists?
Yeah. So I listen to music while I write, and actually the beginning of my process, I kind of throw on headphones and just press shuffle and let random music play before I start writing the books. And certain songs will come on, and then scenes will start dropping into my head. For example, a Hozier song for Scarred, if you know, you know, the church scene, Take Me to Church. So those songs will end up being the songs I listen to when I'm writing the scenes, and then I make the playlist based off of that. So the songs in the playlist, they're vibes. They don't go for each chapter, but they do go kind of in chronological order for the vibes of the book, and they're usually what I listen to while I write it.
Yeah, I don't put them in the front of my book, but Penguin Teen helpfully does post them usually around release for me, and also some of them are on Spotify. But how it works for me is the first thing I need to figure out when I get my muse works a little different, so it drops a scene in. I have no idea what's going on or who these people are, and I got to work backwards and forwards and figure out who is this random person. And the first thing I do is figure out what would their favorite song be. And sometimes it's a song I don't even like, and I'm like, we're really doing this, guys? Like, we're going, okay. And I build a playlist, and that is what I have to work with, and I draft to it every time.
So I don't have playlists in my books, but Grand Central publishes mine, and you know, I come up with them. But the thing is, the playlists that I have for my books are the vibe of the book and the characters. That's not what I listen to when I'm writing.
I know. Why does everybody think it is?
It isn't. Yeah, it isn't. The songs that I listen to when I'm writing are, I usually feel like nervous and imposter syndrome when I sit down to write something like this story, and these characters are so much bigger than me. How am I going to do this? So it's important to me that I listen to really aggressive, testosterone-fueled 90s gangster rap. So I write these like, you know, torrid romances to like NWA. Or, yeah, a lot of West Coast, you know, Dr. Dre and Snoop and, yeah. Oh, but then we come, you know, Wu-Tang over here, you know, so. Just a lot of male voices being like, you can do this, you know.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you have a playlist?
I made a playlist of songs that just reminded me of what the book feels like to me, but I haven't published it, but I guess I should make that public. And
please do. Tomorrow would be a good day.
Definitely.
For that. Yeah.
Immediately.
Put that on your list.
You have another question over here?
Hi.
Hi.
My question's for Emily. If you had to be in either one of your series, would it be Never After or Sugar Lake?
Oh. Well, can I be any character? Because that's gonna. I don't know if I can answer that without feeling like I'm picking a favorite child. But I feel like I would want to be probably a Never After. I love Sugar Lake, but Never After, you know, I feel like no matter what happens, I'm going to get taken care of, or else I'm going to know how to take care of myself. And Sugar Lake, I'm going to have to go through some angsty things.
We have another question back here.
Hello, my question is for Tia. So with you writing Audrey and Bash, is this something that you would think of maybe writing another YA book, or was it more like, this is a book I want to write because I want to continue Audrey's story?
Great question. Yeah, it was more like, this is a book I want to write because I want to continue Audrey's story, and I love her and I love this world. It was so much fun. It was so great, you know, kind of getting inspiration from my daughter and her world. But it really was tough for me not to like go full horny, you know? And also just to be responsible in a way that I don't have to think about with adult, right? Like there was a scene where a character, this kind of debauched, you know, fancy teen girl smoking a cigarette. And certainly I was not making it seem glamorous or like something to do, but my editor was like, someone's going to look at that and think it's glamorous and something to do, you know? So let's, you know, take it out, and it's easy enough to do that. I mean, you do have to be responsible because there are young minds, you know, taking in this content. So that was tough for me. So as much as I loved it, and I love the genre, and I read a ton of YA, I don't know if that's my most comfortable place for writing.
Yeah. It's a lot of responsibility.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a question? We'll go over here.
Hello. Can I ask 2 questions? My first
You're so
question
nice.
is, if in your characters, will you guys ever make a second generation book, like with their kids' stories, like if they get married? She loves those types. Is it bad?
Well, that's what I just did. So in my novel 7 Days in June, the female protagonist has a daughter, and then my YA is about her daughter.
I would say never. I write whatever characters drop into my head, so it's possible that if the characters dropped in my head that were second gen, I would go for that. But some of my characters don't have kids, so it just depends.
I'm currently not sure if I would trust any of my adult characters with children. But I would love to write some of my YA characters aging up.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay. For all the sex scenes in any of your books, this is really her question, but she was never asked it. Is it inspired based on true events, like with you and your partners, or is it like something you guys think of and you're like, fuck it, like I'm gonna write this?
Write what you know. That's what they say.
I have had the experience, but I have had the experience where spicy scenes that I write end up becoming things that I manifest in my own life. Not intentionally. It just is like, oh, I wrote about this. Okay, let's go. Yeah.
This is the power of the romance novel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
No. And actually, some of the spice that I write, I am not a big fan of, and others I am. But again, the characters kind of just tell me what's right, and I have to go there. But I don't think I've ever done anything based off my real life. And if so, I don't remember it, so.
I'm here promoting a YA.
Yeah, all right. I really thought all of you were going to say, I wish. But no. All right.
Well, you never know.
You never know.
We have another question back here.
Hi. So the playlist question actually made me think of this. Do you write chronologically, or do you write certain scenes and then go back and fill in the rest?
Chronologically.
Me too.
Yep, chronologically.
Same.
But a lot of authors are not like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know people that, whichever their favorite scene, they'll write that one first or start in the end and go
It's
backwards.
just so hard to know how that scene would go if you hadn't done all the things leading up to it.
Yeah.
I don't understand
You have
that.
to clear the space ahead of you.
Yeah. Someone back there.
My question's for Emily. I wanted to know why you chose those 6 fairy tales for the Never After series out of all the fairy tales you could have chosen.
Again, I know this is gonna sound just like I'm repeating myself, but it's not even really a conscious thought. When the characters drop in my head, and when Hooked dropped in my head, I was actually on deadline for Beneath the Hood, which comes out on Tuesday.
Oh,
Just
congratulations.
saying. And I had like 10 days left to finish it, but James Hook was so loud in my head as a person that I had to write the first 20,000 words of Hooked. I had to get it out because I couldn't focus on my other characters. And it's kind of a trust process between me and my process and my muse, where I just know usually when I'm writing the climax of the current book, the characters for the next book are going to drop in, and the fairy tale always just feels like that's the fairy tale when it hits me, which is why a lot of you have requested certain fairy tales, and I haven't done them because it would be forced and it wouldn't be a very good book.
We have time for 2 more questions.
My question is for Tinx, actually. First of all, girl, your content pulled me through so many things, so love you for that. 2, would you ever consider, now that you've written a nonfiction and a fiction, writing like a series of books?
I'm really hoping, I mean, I loved writing this novel. I really enjoyed it, and I want to expand this universe. I have an idea. I'm going to pull the thread, and I'm going to see where it goes. But yes, I would absolutely love that, and I'm definitely considering it.
This could be our final question.
Hi, you're making me nervous. What would your advice be for someone who wants to become an author? Like, what would your not pros and cons, but what would you advise them to do?
My advice is always finish your book. Because I think it's really easy. So before you become a published author, you're writing just for you, and you're revising and you're revising, and I think you can get so hung up on moving a comma and is this good enough and everything, and so in your own head. Just get it on the page, stop looking at what you've already written, and get to the end, because once you've filled the sand with sandbox, you can always make better sandcastles out of it. But until you do that, there's nothing to play with. So that's what I always say.
I have a few bullet points. The first one is to write. And that sounds easy, but that's what all of us like to procrastinate doing the most, I would say. So just sit down, train your muse to show up, and show up every day, even if you don't end up using it. Writing is the hardest part and the most important part, so just do it. My second thing is to read articles once a week, once a month on marketing. Because no matter if you're traditionally published, if you're querying, if you're self-publishing, you will need to know how to market your book if you want to sell it. And marketing is marketing. You don't have to look at book marketing. You just have to know the lay of the land, and you have to learn, and you have to be able to adapt. And it's a really important part of running your business. And definitely do that. And my third will be join the Authors Guild. Authors Guild is absolutely invaluable. They can help you. They have a legal team. You can send in contracts. They will look over your contracts for free. They are in your corner if you run into issues with Amazon. I have my CPA, my bookkeeper, everything from the Authors Guild. Top notch.
Oh, I need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You really should. Yeah. It's great.
Can you text me that after?
Yeah, I sure can.
Wow, okay. Mine is a lot like yours. Do not try to fix as you write. No editing whilst writing.
See, I
just
edit
get
while
it.
I write.
But also you've had practice, and but when you're first sitting down to write that first book, you're going to be so obsessed with wanting it to be perfect, but it's going to be shitty, and you have to stand in that truth and let it be bad, because like we're saying, you can't fix a blank page. So.
And everybody's rough draft looks nothing like their finished draft. So don't compare to that.
Do you have any advice?
I just think write every day. Just show up for yourself. Make it a practice. You never know what will come of it, even if it's a random paragraph, a random character, a random thought. Just write every day, and it really will lead you to great places. So I think making it a practice in your life that you love and that you show up for is really important.
I totally agree. I think it's a muscle. So there's just the more you do it, the easier it gets. It never actually gets easy. It's a little like running. It's like it gets easier, but it always sucks. But you should do it every day. Was that our last question?
That was our last question.
That was our last question. Oh my goodness.
A round of applause?